Good afternoon, and welcome to another wonderful installment of the Urban Preparedness Channel. The only channel that tells you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. Most days, because today we're going to talk about a subject that every single person who has reached out to me about subjects to talk about has asked for this particular subject, or at least what they think they want to know about this particular subject, and that is what weapon systems to utilize. I'm not going to tell you that. I'm going to tell you the importance of mastering the weapon systems at hand. Because one of the things that everybody needs to understand, and this is very important, it's not about what gun you have, what knife you have, the length of the pencil you're using to try to stab your enemy. It's about how well you know how to use it. Okay? Weapons are tools. If you don't know how to use this particular tool, it is just as dangerous to you as it is to your enemy. Probably more so to you. It's not about the type of weapon, the caliber of the weapon. A weapon is just a tool. It is about the intelligence, the quick wit, and the sharpness of skill that the individual wielding the weapon has that makes a weapon more dangerous. A weapon is a combat multiplier. What it does is take a warrior, the weapon, and make him more lethal. If you are in a defensive posture, it is the difference between your house being overrun and you dying, or you being able to defend your fighting position, in this case your house, from hundreds of people. If you do not know how to use your weapon, you will not be able to defend your home from probably even one skilled attacker. Now, I'm not going to talk about ballistic trajectories, penetration of rounds, what weapons work better for what. I will go into a little bit of different scenarios in which different weapon systems are going to be better than others. But the biggest question that I get from my followers, and actually just some of my friends on different social media assets, or even while we're communicating face-to-face, is what sort of weapons do you use? How many weapons do you have? Neither of those matter. What matters is, are you proficiently familiar with the weapons that you have available to you? Right now, if the world exploded into unrest, riots took to the streets, and people were headed to your house, what is available in your house that can keep you safe? If you don't have a firearm, that's fine. Everybody has a kitchen knife. Do you know how to use that kitchen knife? Because coming at somebody like this is not going to do anything. You'll get one good stab in. Your weapon's going to lodge into something. And now it's stuck. You don't have a weapon. They proceed to now angrily beat the shit out of you until you die. Now, if you're using, we're going to use this as my example of a kitchen knife. Okay? You have a method called bulldogging. Bulldogging is while you advance forward, pushing the enemy further away from you, and slashing in an X shape across their torso. Don't aim for the neck. Don't aim for the face. And the neck is really easy to protect. You tuck it down. You get a cut across the face. It hurts real bad. You'll bleed a whole lot. You're not going to die. You got a thick cranium. Okay, but if you slash across somebody's chest repeatedly, that brings their protection down to their chest. If their protection comes down to cover their chest, now they have an exposed neck. The next important thing to think about when you're talking about a knife fight, where are the best places to finish off your enemy? Now, if the enemy doesn't know who you are, they don't know that you're a threat, but you know that they're a threat, abso-frickin-lutely the important places to cut are right here and right here on your throat. Deep across gashes from behind work fantastic. Right up here underneath the armpit, there's a huge artery that runs this length. You stick a knife right up here into this armpit, they're going to bleed out rather quickly. The same thing for the pits of your crotch. Doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, Those arteries still run along those femurs down here. You stick a blade up into that area and yank. 13 to 15 seconds, they're going to lose consciousness. About a minute, minute and a half, they're probably going to lose enough blood that they're not going to get back up. About 3 minutes from now, they're dead. Transfusion's not bringing them back. No problem. What's not going to help you? Stabbing a man in the chest. Okay? Really, really, really thick bone plate over your chest. Even if you hit the cartilage that's right here in between your sternum and the rest of your chest plate, it's not going to puncture enough to hit the heart. Okay? It's just not going to happen. Now, if you come in from in between that second and third intercostal space right here between your ribs, that soft spot between your ribs there, you'll puncture a lung. They'll start aspirating, having a hard time breathing. Eventually, they'll go down. Okay, but you can hold your breath underwater for a long time. So what that translates to in a knife fight is they can continue swinging and fighting for quite a long time. If they have a gun, they can continue shooting accurately for quite a long time before a tension pneumothorax, which is what happens when air pressure gets sucked into a hole there, kicks in enough that it takes you out of the fight. Now, we're not just going to talk about knives here, but if the only thing you have to protect yourself is a knife, absolutely know how to use it. For those of you that don't have a chance to go to the range and shoot every weekend, like I do, you need to go and get yourself a shotgun. Now, I'm not going to explain the difference between the stability of a man and the low center of gravity of a woman, but what I am going to tell you is that most women do not have strong enough arms to accurately engage with a 12 gauge numerous times on multiple moving targets. However, a 20 gauge or a 410, they seem to excel at significantly better than men because they have a low center of gravity. And the bullet is not so strong as to knock them over when they fire. Their arms can hold onto it. Most women, now I've met quite a few women that can take a Benelli 12 gauge shotgun and do beautiful things with it that intimidate even my skill set at shooting. It's not, we're not going to go down the road here of who's a better shot, men or women. We're going with the averages of scientific fact. Most men have a stronger upper body. Most men have stronger arms. Most men are capable of firing a 12 gauge. Most women have a smaller upper body. Most women do not have the arm strength capable to properly maneuver a 12 gauge. So, if you don't have a firearm and you're going to go buy a new firearm, don't go out and buy a 12 gauge for your wife. You can go out and buy a 20 gauge for your wife. You can buy a 410 for your wife. Absolutely fantastic things. Okay. But I bring up shotguns because they're very, very, very simple. They're easy to operate. You do not have to be precise to hit your target with double-aught buck. Now, if you're using a slug, you got to be a little bit more precise, but after about 60 yards, it kind of starts to tumble anyway. You're going to get a little wobble to it. No big deal. You're still going to blow a very nice size hole in your target. But if we're talking about, arming your wife or arming your kid, 20 gauge, 410, it's got a nice size spread. If it's not perfectly on and you just clip somebody, it's still enough to let them know you've just been shot. That's enough to change somebody's mind. Now, the big one that drives me nuts. Everybody always tells me, I have 15 guns in my house, or I have 9 handguns and 12 rifles, or check out my collection of AR-15s. But every single time they go to the range, they bring their favorite sidearm, their favorite AR, and maybe 1 or 2 more that they just consider toys and they only bring to the range because they like having fun with it. When I go to the range, I bring every single firearm in my possession. I lay them out. I look at them and I think to myself, what has it been a long time since I fired? That's the weapon I'm going to shoot. Because if you're not used to your weapon system, firing with your personal biometrics, right? Your biomechanics are very important. The way that your body handles the recoil of your rifle is different for every single rifle. It's different for every single pistol. The length of the barrel changes the ballistics of the weapon. So if you're used to shooting your 16-inch barrel AR-15, you've been shooting it forever, and you just bought a brand new 7.5-inch AR pistol, the ballistic trajectory is not the same. The round impact and rise is not the same. Your BZO on your optic is probably not the same. if you only practice with your absolute favorite Remington 700-308 with that match grade trigger, and then you end up in a CQB environment. For those of you that don't know what that is, CQB is a close quarters battle. 90% of all gunfights in an urban environment are CQB, close quarters battles. That means it happened within 100 yards. Sometimes about 200 yards. Moral of the story is, your Remington 700-308 with that match grade trigger and that beautiful $1,200 Leopold scope is not going to outperform engaging individual targets that even a basic Wasser 10 7.62 by 39 Romanian knockoff AK-47 is going to do in that same range. Because there's not enough distance between you and your enemy for the more constricted ballistic trajectory of your 308 to outweigh the rapid target acquisitioning and constant engagement of a semi-automatic AK platform or AR platform or any other semi-automatic platform. Inside of 100 yards, I'm probably going to use an SBR, a short-barreled rifle, or I'm going to use a crowd pleaser like a 12-gauge pump action, or inside of 50 yards, I'm not even going to draw my rifle up. I'm immediately going to go for my sidearm and engage the target. Every time. But I only know that because I practice with every single weapon system in my house. I am proficient with all of my weapons. If you have 200 rifles, but you are only proficient with one rifle, if that rifle goes down, you now have 199 backups that you cannot accurately engage a target with. If you have 200 rifles and you are only proficient with one, all you have successfully done is collect enough firearms to arm an army if your house gets raided. That's all you've done. So you need to go to the range. You need to practice with your weapon systems. That doesn't necessarily mean you need to take your gun to the range. What it does mean is you need to make sure your knives are sharpened. If you don't have any weapons, you don't have any firearms, you don't have any knives, make sure there's a sharpened pencil in the glove box of your car. Because a pencil in your carotid artery is the exact same as a knife in your carotid artery. You're still going to bleed out in relatively the same time frame. Your target's still going to die. If all you have to defend yourself is a butter knife, rub it on the pavement till it's sharp and practice slashing at a dummy with your now sharpened butter knife. What is in your hand is not a weapon, it is a tool. You, your mind, and how well you have prepared yourself for these upcoming events is the weapon. That being said, for all of you that have fantastic weapons collections out there, when you get off of watching my video tonight, what I want you to do is pull out all of those firearms that you probably haven't cleaned in a couple of weeks, run some nice CLP over it, make sure they cycle, feeding, chambering, locking, firing, extracting, ejecting, cocking, the cycle of operations for all of your semi-automatic sporting rifles. Make sure it's working properly. Functions checks all of your weapons. Make sure it's cleared and safe. Functions check it, lubricate it, reload it, put it back where it goes. I always say reload it. An unloaded weapon is a very expensive club. So unless you bought that Benelli shotgun just so that you could beat somebody to death with the buttstock, it needs to have rounds in it at all times. Safety-wise, you're treating every weapon as if it were loaded anyway, so it might as well be loaded. If you haven't read the Constitution by now, I'm going to stop saying it in my videos because you're not paying attention. If you're not paying attention, you're just wasting your time. I'm sitting up here talking, running my suck for no reason. If you've already read the Constitution and you've already started reading your Bill of Rights and you've already gone through and started reading those state and local legislatures pertaining to you and your particular situations, awesome. Good on you. Fantastic. What I'm going to tell you to read today is fiction. I want you to go out, hop on Amazon, hop on Google, go to the public library, and find a fiction book that has to do with the end of society as we know it, or a dystopian future, or a crazy apocalypse. It doesn't matter if it's a zombie apocalypse. Whatever book you pull out and read is going to stimulate your mind. It's going to stimulate your mind about potential tactical environments that you would not have thought about otherwise. I'm not going to give you examples of books because I'm not sponsored by anybody, so I'm not trying to sell you anything. But what you need to do is stimulate your mind. Stimulating your mind is just as important as keeping your weapon clean. So as soon as you finish cleaning your weapon, go stimulate your mind. Afterwards, go ahead and drop a comment down below. Let me know what book you read. If I haven't read it, I'm probably going to go buy it and I'll read it myself. Otherwise, hey, thank you for watching, and keep your powder dry. We'll see you next time.